You've probably heard that quote before. History is written by the victors. But what about that second part? What if the real victories, the ones that truly changed the course of history, weren't won by the men who claimed them at all? What if there's a whole other story, one that's been deliberately buried? A story about wars that were fought not with swords and shields, but inside the human mind. And that's exactly what we're going to uncover. We're following the research of a historian, Dr. Elias Thorne. He stumbled onto something, well, something terrifying. A pattern connecting a few seemingly random artifacts from across thousands of years. And the masterminds behind this pattern? He had a name for them. He called them the architects. So picture this. Dr. Thorne, deep in some dusty archives sub-basement. You can almost smell the old paper, right? On his desk, under a single dim lamp, sit these three objects. A crumbling Sumerian tablet, a diary from 15th century France, and an old, rusted telegraph logbook. Now, by themselves, they're just historical footnotes. But together, that's when they start telling a very different story. The story of a secret war against reality itself. Okay, let's open the first case file. We're going way, way back to 1240 BC and the siege of a city called Oketh. Now, our focus here isn't on a general or a king. No, it's on the city's architect, a man who understood that the most powerful weapon you can wield isn't a sword, but a shadow. And right away, we see where the official history and the hidden truth split apart. The history books, they tell us a divine plague, a miracle, saved the city. Convenient, isn't it? But that tablet Thorne translated tells a completely different tale. It wasn't a plague from the gods. It was a psychological assault engineered by one man, Zariel, who figured out how to turn the very environment into a weapon. So how in the world did he do it? Well, it was a three-pronged attack designed to shatter the enemy's sanity. First, the sonic assault. Get this, he had his men carve special grooves into the nearby cliffs, turning them into these gigantic, eerie flutes that would shriek whenever the wind blew. The sound included subsonic frequencies, too low for the human ear to actually hear, but they'd cause intense nausea and a deep sense of dread. Next, the river of blood. He didn't poison the water supply. He systematically dyed it crimson. Imagine being a soldier watching the river you depend on suddenly flow with blood. And finally, the insomnia swarm. He unleashed thousands of starving crickets into their camp, whose deafening, erratic chirping made sleep absolutely impossible. The psychological principle he was using here is called apophenia. It's our brain's natural tendency to find patterns in random information, like seeing a face in the clouds. Zariel knew that if you take an army that's sleep-deprived, constantly nauseous, and then show them screaming cliffs and a river of blood, their minds are going to connect those dots. They won't see random events. They'll see a pattern, a curse. He wasn't fighting the army. He was feeding their superstitions until their own minds collapsed. And this quote from the tablet sums up his entire philosophy. Zariel knew that fear could break through defenses that stone never could. He engineered a haunting, and the enemy army, completely convinced they were cursed, turned on their own officers and simply imploded. Zariel won the war without a single one of his soldiers ever firing an arrow. All right, let's move to our next architect. We're jumping forward now, all the way to 15th century France. The weapon this time isn't the environment. No, it's something much more intimate. The very fabric of a single person's reality. Let me introduce you to Lady Geneviève de Marigny, a royal archivist with a very specific plan. And you see the pattern again, right? The official record is always so neat and tidy. A brutal king conveniently goes mad and gives up his throne. But Genevieve's diary, the one Dr. Thorne found, reveals the truth. King Lothar's mind didn't just break. It was meticulously taken apart, piece by tiny piece, by the quiet woman who managed his library. What she did was a masterclass in gaslighting, executed with an architect's precision. For example, the king writes a new tax decree in his official ledger. Geneviève uses an ink that vanishes completely in 3 days. He looks back at the page he knows he wrote on, and it's blank. He starts to think his memory is failing. Or she has a 1/4 inch shaved off the front legs of his heavy oak desk, creating a constant, inexplicable physical unease. But her masterpiece? She trained his personal servants to occasionally stare in abject terror at an empty space just over his shoulder. He couldn't interrogate them, leaving him utterly convinced an invisible demon was stalking him. And that was her whole goal. As she wrote in her diary, Assassination is messy. It creates martyrs, it starts wars. But if you make the king doubt his own sanity, you can engineer a bloodless coup. He became so terrified of his own mind that he willingly gave up his crown and actually begged to be locked away. Okay, our third and final architect takes us into the Industrial Age, right into the Franco-Prussian conflict of 1870. The weapon evolves again. It's no longer the senses or physical reality, now it's information itself. And the architect isn't a noble or a scholar, he's a humble telegraph clerk named Silas Vane. General von Sturm goes down in the history books as a traitor, a coward who retreated and lost the war. But that old telegraph logbook shows he wasn't a coward, he was a victim. His every decision was being subtly manipulated by a clerk hundreds of miles away, who never changed a single word of the orders he received. He only changed the timing. See, a standard military telegraph has a unique rhythm, what operators called a fist. A message from high command would be sent like this: crisp, even, confident. The information is clear, but so is the implied tone of authority. But Vanin's version was different. The words are identical, but listen to how he relayed them. It's erratic, hesitant. He put these tiny, unnatural pauses in. To the operator on the other end, it sounded like the sender at high command was panicked, terrified, or unsure. The message was an order, but the meta-message was chaos.
His arsenal was just brilliant in its subtlety. He would delay messages for hours, delivering them in the middle of the night to destroy the general's sleep. He used that hesitant fist to make leadership sound weak. And he would even add single, random letters to encrypted messages, forcing the codebreakers to waste hours searching for a phantom mistake, breeding total exhaustion and paranoia.
So we have Zariel, Genevieve, and Silas Vane, three forgotten figures who perfected the art of psychological warfare. And this is where Dr. Thorne's discovery moves from history to a chilling modern warning. Because the unseen war, it never ended. It just scaled up. This timeline shows a clear evolution of these tactics, from the senses to personal reality to information flow. And it leads directly to today with a terrifying question mark. Who are the architects now? Well, the answer is, they're everywhere. Think about it. Zariel used subsonic frequencies to create a constant, low-level dread in one army. Are our 24-hour news cycles of doom and disaster really any different? They're just a modern digital version of that same tactic, scaled to entire populations. Genevieve gaslit one king by changing his immediate physical surroundings. Today, we have deepfakes, AI-generated content, and the ability to seamlessly alter our shared digital history. It can gaslight billions, making us question the very reality we see on our screens. And here's the most direct parallel of all. Silas Vane controlled one general by manipulating the cadence of information. Today, social media algorithms do the exact same thing to billions of us, curating our feeds, deciding what we see and when, shaping our emotions and decisions on a global scale. Which brings the whole story right back to our historian, Dr. Thorne, alone in that archive. He made the connections, he saw the pattern. But what happens when the historian realizes he's not just studying history anymore, but that he's become a part of it? A chill runs down his spine. He feels a sudden, profound unease. He looks at his own heavy oak desk, and for a terrifying moment, it seems to be tilting, just a fraction, a direct echo of Genevieve's tactic. The line between his research and his reality begins to blur. And this is the final, horrifying realization. As Thorne sits there, watching the ink on his own notes seem to fade, he understands. The architects aren't just historical figures, they are a continuous, evolving presence. And by discovering them, he has made himself their next target. The unseen war is still being fought, and we are all living on the battlefield.
Please like and subscribe.